Hello, everyone. This is FPL Under the Radar Game Week 7 preview. This is your host, FPL Kante, joining you with my co host, FPL Wrangler. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing all right, doing all right. Excited for Game Week 7. Kind of a boring week all through last week, but I think uh, hoping to get something better this game week, at least in comparison to game week 6. How's your sorry, game week 5? I mean, game week 6 was mostly good for most of us. How's your game week 6?
It was okay. I think Trippier just saved my game week, I would say. Um, could have been better, could have been worse, but again, can't complain, right? The Trippier's 18 points haul, that was a massive, right? So I had two free transfer, and that kind of probably, pushed me to do the transfer. If I would have had one free transfer, then I would be like confused, right? That whether I would take
Mhm,
heat to take out Chilwell because it was a confusing decision at that moment, right? That whether
mhm,
Chilwell is going to start or not. But anyways, it paid off eventually. So again, still it was not really a very good week, but it was as I said, I got some green arrow, which is at least always better, right?
mhm.
How about yours?
Yeah, it was good. It was good overall. It went pretty well. Got the Johnston 10-pointer, Trippier, Chilwell to Trippier turned out really, really good for me as well. Yeah, overall it was finally a good game week, right? After a couple of kind of disappointing game weeks. So yeah, happy with what happened. Didn't wildcard. I think a lot of wildcard actually had a bad game week in game week 6, especially people who transferred out Son, etc. But yeah,
Son and Bruno Fernandez.
yeah, Bruno. Yeah.
Yeah, Saka. So, by the way, how are you feeling? Are you feeling all right? Like you were not feeling all
Oh
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
physically I'm feeling much better.
Okay.
Yeah, earlier this game when I was doing the review video, my voice was still kind of a little
Okay.
sore, but now I'm doing a lot better. Yeah, thanks for
Great.
asking.
Yep.
All right, I think we have few viewers here as well. Thank you all for joining. So let's start with the fixtures first. We'll talk about the matchup in a few minutes. So of course, this is game week 7. Tomorrow morning is the deadline. Um, Quite a few fixtures that we'll talk about more in more details in the matchup. Uh, a reminder that Europe is in midweek, UCL and the other European competitions. So of course, Man City and Newcastle they play on Wednesday. Arsenal and United are on Tuesday, and then of course the Europa and other Conference League games on Thursday. So keep that in mind if you are trying to make early transfers. For if you are wildcarding, of course, you will try to catch price rises and so on, price changes. But if you are just using your free transfers, be aware that there are midweek games. There is, of course, not a whole lot of time as you see for Arsenal, Manchester United. So there was some concern, of course, with Saka's injury, right? Whether he will play the Bournemouth game, even if he's fit, there is still doubt, right? I mean, we saw some videos coming out today that he was in the with the team at Bournemouth, but there is Europe in 2 days. There is Man City game in the next weekend, so there is still doubt whether he will start or not. So there is a little bit of that. United, of course, kind of already depleted, so not a whole lot of rotation chance for the popular FPL assets at least. City and Newcastle also. I mean, there was a little bit of doubt about how he will rotate, but I think he kind of has his first choice 11, right? Looks like they will be playing pretty much in all the league games. Maybe a little bit of rotation between Wilson and Isak. That's about it. And City are also pretty depleted right now. I don't think they have a lot of opportunities to really rotate, unlike what Pep generally does, right? So, yeah, so that's basically that. And with respect to Brighton, I think that's one of the uh, Deserve is basically becoming the new Pep, right? With regards to rotation and everything. So it's hard to go there other than maybe outside Mitoma. All the other attackers are essentially being rotated. And Tottenham and Chelsea, of course, I mean, Chelsea's fixtures are turning for the worse after game week 8. Game week 7 and 8 are still good, right? Fulham and Burnley. But after that, their fixtures turns bad. Tottenham, again, not in Europe. So, and their fixtures are pretty good from game week 7 onwards, at least game week 8 onwards, I would say, when they play Luton in game week 8. So well, there is a lot of interest, of course, in Tottenham assets as well, right? So that's basically the fixtures. Anything that you want to add before we want to
Just
before we move on?
one thing, like based on the Europe observation, look like especially Aston Villa and Liverpool, they didn't actually have the like main 11 in the Europe duties, right? Like Salah didn't play, or even for Aston Villa, like they didn't start with Diaby or Cash or Watkins, right? So they came on later. So I think, I mean, they lost. So Aston Villa lost in the first game, but again, I don't know how that's gonna be look like in the next game. But at least it looked like that they were paying more attention to the league game. Looks like at least they didn't start their main 11. So I don't
Yeah,
expect a lot of rotation. But again, Brighton actually had a lot of rotation, as you mentioned, right? So that's one team I think we have
yeah.
to be careful about. But I think Villa and Liverpool I think should be good. I think in
Yeah,
the
and
Europe.
another quick thing regards to rotation is in the Carabao Cup, most of the teams played their second 11s, right? So not many teams fielded their main players, etc. So not a whole lot of chance of rotation this weekend, anyways. At least not for the midweek games in the last week. So yeah, let's move on to the matchups quickly. So of course, few games that are targetable. Newcastle are facing Burnley, right? So that's a very targetable game. Manchester United are against Crystal Palace at home, and we have seen United's XG numbers, underlying numbers, at least over a very long time in the last year or so, pretty much up there. So, and that shows up on this plot also, right? So on x-axis, we are looking at the expected goals. So at home, they are a very good attacking side. Of course, Luton and Burnley, they have double game weeks. Unfortunately, those two are the teams who are at the bottom three of the table right now, right? So not a lot of expected from them, but it's a double game week no matter what, right? At least for Luton on paper, it's a fairly decent double, right, against Burnley and Everton. Everton away, I think, and Burnley at home, if I'm not wrong. So fairly decent double for Luton, and Burnley is against Newcastle and Luton, of course. Again, Newcastle game is kind of a wash. I don't think they would expect to do much in that game, but Luton could be a good game for them. Again, very open. We expect both the teams to kind of go for it in that particular game, right? Luton versus Burnley. So yeah, that's that. And then elsewhere, I think West Ham has a very good matchup, right? Especially with Ward Prowse and all their tall defenders like Zuma and Suchek and Aguerd, etc., etc. It could be a very good matchup, particularly against Sheffield, given that their weakness in the air. We saw that in the Newcastle game last game week, right? So that could be a very good matchup. Arsenal, of course, as we said, they are against Bournemouth in this game. But yeah, and then the big game, of course, this weekend is Liverpool versus Tottenham, right? So that's something to look forward to. Could be a very open game. We could see a lot of games, a lot of goals. I mean, in that particular game, I think I was telling you, right, in the last 5 games, there have been like 20 goals, right, between Tottenham and Liverpool. So it could be something very similar. But yeah, we'll see. That's the exciting match of this game week. Anything particular that you want to talk about with regards to matchup?
Did you talk about Man City? I mean, I think there
No,
is
Man
is
City. I
already
no, I
okay.
intentionally didn't. But yeah, we can talk about it. Yeah.
Okay, and
Uh,
also like Villa and Brighton, right? That's another game. I think as we were like discussing before the spot, right? That we expect this to be like high scoring game, right? Both
right.
teams looked good offensively, and Brighton didn't. I mean, at least defensively, re- I don't know. They they didn't care much. They were very
Yeah.
much attacking minded team, right? So we could see a lot of goals in this game. So, but yeah, I
Right.
think otherwise you covered it pretty well in here. Um,
Yeah.
anything you want to talk about the Chelsea game? What's your expectation or thought about this? And
Yeah, I think
um,
it's still a good matchup. Still a good matchup. There is a good chance that Starling may play up front now that Jackson is suspended. Broya is not quite ready to start yet. So I think there is a very good chance that Starling may play number
okay,
9, or
yeah.
maybe Palmer can play false 9, etc. as well. But we'll see. But I think overall, it still is a pretty good matchup for Chelsea. There is no
Right.
reason for us to not win.
Just
Yep.
for the viewers, right? I mean, this data was from last season's game week 17 up to today, right? So that's why Chelsea's like number you see in the second quadrant, which shows a team bad attack. But again, last season Chelsea were like very poor, right, attackingly, and that's kind of accumulated the XG
Mhm.
here as well, right? But this season they did look good comparatively, right? At least
Yep.
they massively
Underlying, I
underperformed,
can say.
yeah,
Yep.
underlying
Mhm.
UI, but massively underperformed. But at least their XG did look good, and yeah, that's why I think it's a very good matchup, as you said. So.
Yeah. I don't think we'll get another opportunity to talk about captaincy, so maybe we can talk about that as well. Uh,
Right.
do you have any intention to captain anyone outside Haaland this game week? Double game weeker potentially.
No, I think Man City versus Wolves is a very good matchup. I mean, Wolves have been leaky, right? I mean, in this season we saw that, right? Offensively or attacking wise, they did look promising, but defensively they have been really leaky, and I think that's a very good matchup for Man City. So I don't have heart to go against him. Um,
Right.
and now, if we have a double game week players like Morris, I can understand you might be tempted, like that the way we always had this like fascination to go for the double game week a captain, right? But I would not do that. It's just a very good matchup for Man City, and I think it's. I mean, I would not be surprised. I mean, if he gets like 10 plus returns, like double digit haul.
Yep. Absolutely. Same thoughts there as well. I have no intention to go against Haaland, uh, especially given the quality of the teams that are in the doubles. So yep, absolutely. I think at least in my mind, I don't have any doubt over the Haaland captaincy this game. He's well rested as well, right? He didn't play at all in the Carabao Cup or anything. So, yep, looking forward to that. Let's move on to the under the radar picks. So, just for this week, because this is a double game week again, we already expressed our feeling how we feel about the double game weekers. But because this is a double game week, I think it's worth to at least mention one double game week player, Alfie Doughty. He only started 2 games out of the 5 for Luton, but looked really, really good in the Wolves game last week. Was playing in the opposite flank from Kabore. He actually started at right back the game that Kabore didn't start. So kind of that shows up on his heat map both on the right flank and on the left flank. But his numbers looked very, very good in the last game. Like he didn't get any returns, attacking returns, but he actually did get a bonus point out of that game, although they conceded. So yeah, there is something to look forward to. Again, he did look like a decent player, as we say, this game week. It's Everton and Burnley at home, so I wouldn't be surprised if Luton. I mean, if there is any chance for Luton getting a clean sheet ever this season, this is this, right? Like against Burnley and Everton. So absolutely chance there, and he can easily come out with a attacking return as well. So, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of getting difficult to get any under the radar pick in US, right? Because people are so aware these days. Everyone looks at stats, underlines, and so on. So, really difficult to actually find out an under the radar pick. But I think Doughty kind of falls in that category still. We'll see how he does. Hopefully, he does at least something for to make sure that our under the radar pick gets some return. Hopefully. All right, so let's move on to our main discussion this game week, which is the wildcard windows. So Wrangler, you did this nice kind of few metrics to show what the differences are between wildcard 7, 8, 9, and 10, what the pros are, what the cons are. So take us through what your thought process is right now. We all, of course, UI and ZD spoke about this earlier this week, right? Whether all of us are kind of tempted to wildcard at some point. Neither of us did, or at least so far we didn't. Hopefully, nothing will happen by tomorrow morning. But what are you thinking overall from wildcard in the next 3-4 game weeks?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, right, that all three of us were thinking about it, and then we kind of had discussed, like amongst us, and this is basically the outcome of all of this discussion that we had, right? And eventually, we didn't do press the wildcard button, but I think the discussion that we wanted to see, like we actually had that, okay, what are the pros and cons in different game weeks? Like, if you do now, 7 and then 8 and 9 and 10, right? So I think the main difference between like from the game week 7 wildcard 7 and to game week uh, um, 10 wildcard is, I think, one of the main differences is the information, right? That whatever information you have now, it's going to be changing. It may change in over the course like 3 to 4 weeks, right? Because we have international break as well, right? Game week 9 after game week 9. So that's one of the main difference, right? Another one is the team value. Now, team value is a plus, right? So if you like jump onto the players now, then definitely you're gaining team values, right? And I mean, it's kind of obvious too, right? And that's why a lot of people were thinking that, you know what, Salah looking good, right? And Aston Villa looking good too. And I mean, I don't trust like Man United boys, so just get the Spurs boys. They are fixture turning good as well. They have been playing good. They did do good in the tough game like Arsenal, right? So even if they are playing Liverpool, that's a home game, and then from game week 8 they have a good run of fixtures. So why not I just play wildcard now? And that's really completely a very legit reasonable way of thinking. And that's why we are also planning to think play the wildcard too, right? And I mean, whether we play or not, that's a different thing, but we did think about it, right? So yeah, team value is very plus when if you play now. And another plus is like double gaming players, right? That those who take who do play wildcard now, they can think of to get double gaming players, right? Because they are shuffling the team, right? They can get either Morris or even Kabore or whoever it is, right? And then they can after they're done, they can get rid of them. But again, one thing is that like the price point of say Morris, right? That if you get Morris, then you have to, I mean, if you want to get rid of him, you have to find out someone, right? That at this price point. And I think Solanke is okay. Solanke's fixture from game week 8 to 10 is good. So if anyone wants to get rid of like some Morris after game week 7, Solanke is a decent option, right? Otherwise, you might need two moves, right? To get rid of Morris and then get someone in the mid or defense. So that might be a difficult one. So whoever playing wildcard 7 and getting double game week players, they need to think about that, how to deal with these double game week players, right? But I think then if you, as I said, if you get double game week players, if you don't, I mean, you may have to dump them, right? We just saw the chart before, right? That Luton or Burnley, they didn't look good, right? All the even promoted teams, so they might be a burden for you. Now, if you don't play wildcard 7, but if you still have them, right, then you can dump them, right, during your wildcard play 8 or 9, so or 10, whenever you play it, right? So that one of the advantage, I think, if you take, I think 1 week punt, I would say, um, you can go for like Morris. Like say if you think that if you want to play a wildcard, it you can just get the Morris and just get like throw him away, throw him out after that. Uh, yeah, and then again, as I said, like Spars, good fixture is from game week 8, but again, I mean, people can go early, right? If you play wildcard now and versus Liverpool, it's not a bad matchup. And Newcastle did good last game week, right? They like had 8 goals, and they also have good kind of fixture. So basically, Spurs, Newcastle, Liverpool, and Villa. Those are the four teams people are really kind of targeting, right? Whenever they play wildcard now, or even game week 10, right? Those are the, at least out of uh, f- 3 out of these four teams, players will be common, right? From this team, the only difference will be in game week 10 is Brighton, because Brighton have a very good run of fixtures, right? But I think overall, I would say game week 7 to game week 9, there are not much difference except the double game week players. Otherwise, I think game week 7 to game week 9, um, one difference is after the international break, so you have more information, right? You can probably avoid more injuries or whatever it is, right? That will be the main differences between game week 7 and game week 8, 9 wildcard. That's my view. Okay. And team value, of course, but otherwise, they are pretty much same. Game week 10 Wildcard team, it will be a little bit different than game week 7 to game week 9, right? But yeah, otherwise, couple of other things basically, like say if you are if you have bunch of manuated players, and if you're playing wildcard now, I don't think you are getting them, right? Because you are playing wildcard to get rid of them, I believe. And one of the main reasons also to get Salah, right? Because that's how people are thinking that Salah looking good, they are missing out point. But again, Man United had tough fixture, to be honest, at the very beginning, but now they have good or decent fixture, right? And some of the players are coming back, right? The Amrabat, Mount is back, right? So um, they might do good, who knows, and you might miss out. Although I mean, if you play wildcard, you might get rid of him. So that's one thing, right? I mean, that you have to accept that. And definitely Chelsea, I think Jackson and Chilwell people already dumped, but some people might have Starling. So I mean, their fixture is still looked good from 7 to at least 7 and 8, right? So those are the couple of things I think they're gonna miss out. But I think the players they are gonna get, instead of replacing these Man United or Chelsea players, I think those are very good options, right? I mean, they're getting Salah, likes of Son, Diaby, or even Gordon is a good enabler as well, right? So I think game week 7 wildcard, or game week 8 9, it's pretty good. I would probably, between 7 and 8, I prefer 7, because again it's the same thing, especially, right? Between 8 and 9, probably I prefer 9 again, because of the again international break and injury rules stuff again, right? So, but
Mhm.
again, between 9 and 10, I prefer 10 again, because there is a fixture string for Brighton. So right now, I mean, as I said before, that all of us kind of accepted the fact that we're gonna like eat the price drops, right? We thought that Man United we are happy with it. At least we I mean, not happy maybe, but at least the fixture is there, right? And I think we expect them to do good. So we can do some free transfer to get, likes of Spurs assets and Newcastle asset. Only thing, if you don't wildcard now, you're gonna probably miss out Liverpool and Villa. That's the only
Especially
two teams.
Salah. Yeah,
Yeah,
Salah,
Salah and
Salah and Watkins
exactly,
potentially.
right. Yeah, and especially Salah, I would say. When Aston Villa looked good, but their fixture is very good from game week 9, 7 and 8. It's okay each
Hmm.
fixture. I mean, right? So I think that's like only like two teams you're gonna miss, right? Especially Salah, as you mentioned. So
Yeah.
otherwise, I prefer game week 10, just because Brighton fixture is really good, and you can get
Hmm.
the Brighton, and at that moment actually you might not need even two Spurs, because I think Spurs next fixture, if I just pull out
Mhm.
Spurs from game week 9, so they are playing game
Nine
week
ten is
9.
Fulham Palace.
Right. But in
11 is
in game
Chelsea.
week 10, they are playing Palace away. Palace away is always difficult, right? They're
Hmm.
playing Chelsea, and then Wolves away is good, but again, Aston Villa, Man City, right? So it's
Yep.
not really a very like good fixture run like Villa or Liverpool, right? So it might
Hmm.
be okay to get rid of one of them at that moment, right? And if you just transfer them in game week 8 and keep them in game week 9, it should be okay, right? So that's the
Right.
thought process, at least. So yeah, that was the overall thing, and we thought to kind of capture all of this in one chart. It might be overwhelming, but I think I hope it helped people. At least it helped us, right, to get the like all the pictures, at least most of the key features, right?
Hmm.
What do you think? Do you want to add anything here, or what's your thought? I mean,
No, I think you covered it well. The only thing is like, I mean, of course, Salah looks like essential-ish right now, right? If you wildcard in game week 7 or 8, as we said, that's one of the main reasons that people are wildcarding to get Salah, Haaland, and Son in the same team potentially, right? Because it's very hard to manage your funds around the team with just free transfers, right? Even if you have two free transfers, you have to kind of grab funds from elsewhere in the pitch, right? From your defenders, from your goalkeeper, and so on. So that part is the difficult part, right? To get all those three big hitters up front. But by the time we get to say game week 9, the perceptions may change, right? We may figure out that other Liverpool attackers are maybe better value than Salah, right? Like a Darwin or maybe even a Diaz or someone like that, who can cover not for like point for point, but for value they could cover Salah, right? And Salah is not cheap. Salah is 12.5 million plus. He's going to be more expensive. So by the time we get to game week 9 post international break, our perception of what's essential will change as well, right? It is changing every week. We only have information from 6 game weeks. Now we think double Tottenham is essential. As you said, like game week 9, 10 onwards, we may not even think that they will be essential, right? Given how they perform against the tougher teams and so on. So all of that will change. All of our perceptions will change. So I think one of the main reasons a lot of people are wildcarding this game week is to uh, have good team value, make sure that all the players that we are targeting by the time we get to a game week 9 or 10, they will be more expensive and you won't be able to get to them. That's one of the main reasons. And it's still a valid reason. Right at this point, they look like the best targets. So there is no harm. I think people who are wildcarding in game week 7, game week 6 wildcarders were a little unlucky, as we said before. But I think game week 7 is a perfect time to wildcard. 8, as you said, I try to not wildcard just before the international break. People who will wildcard in game week 7 will also be able to carry over a free transfer for the international break as well, right? So you'll have two free transfers potentially for game week 9. So that's a positive for game week 7 wildcard over game week 8. Um, so yeah, that's basically it. And then again, by the time you get to game week 10, 9 or 10, you have more chance to reassess the players, reassess the teams, how they are doing, how they're playing, look at the fixtures up front. There is a uh, group of thought where people want to delay the wildcard even further, right? Up to all the way up to game week 18, 19, where Brentford and City will have a blank and then potentially double right after, right? Game week 19, I think, is the threshold for the first wildcard, and then game week 20 is right after that. Potential double game week there and so on, right? So there could be more opportunities for you to play the first wildcard as well down the road. But again, we are not going that far yet. But yeah, I think it's basically, if I right now, if I order it like in uh, priority, as per priority for when is the best time to wildcard out of these 4 game weeks, I would say probably 9 and then 7 and then 10, something like that. 9 and 10 are probably somewhat close. But 7, again, there is an obvious reason for people to wildcard, right? That we are trying to get all these big hitters up front in the team and then managing fund. So that's definitely important. But yeah, other than that, I think it's as you said, it's kind of team dependent, of course, also where you are, whether you can navigate some of these transfers with free transfer or not, whether you have to take too many hits anytime. I think for me, if your number of hit starts to go higher than like -8 or something, it's probably wildcard time, right? So that basically means that you need too many changes around your team with hits and so on. So yeah, so that's basically that. So let's look at a few uh, of the wildcard drafts that you put together as well. I want to go through the wildcard 7 draft.
Yeah, so basically, like as I mentioned, right, that game week 7 wildcard. So those team, like players from like Villa, not Villa, Newcastle, then Liverpool and Spurs will be very popular, right? Because Spurs fixture is gonna be good. I mean, at least they are having good patch, but also like the fixture even getting better, right? And then Salah will be there. Three Newcastle, and as I said, Gordon is a very good enabler. He did good, and also his underlyings look good too, right? So, and versus, I mean, he is on 4 yellow, but I think it's okay because if you play wildcard, I think it's expected that you're gonna have a good bench cover as well, right? So it's fine. Like players like, as you can say, Cash or even Regulon, they are actually on the bench, right? So we have here again Ariola and Turner. I think, I mean, Ariola is, I mean, definitely is there now. Whether you want Turner or someone else, I don't know. I feel like if you're set on Ariola, and I mean Western's fixture actually is good too. So either if you have fund, you can probably think of another 4.5, like like I don't know, someone like if you want to rotate. But I think
Yep.
if you don't have, if you are like worried about your team value, like if it is lower end, I think 2 4 million kuli is. Are you actually now 4.3 or 4.2, something like that, right? Like by the time we play wildcard in game week 9 and 10, I think he's gonna be around 4.5 or so, something like that. But
Mhm,
anyways,
mhm.
Trippier, Botman, and Kabore is the double game week player, right? And then Gordon, Son, and Madison probably a must have, yeah, because of their fixture. Saka, Starboy will be there, and I mean, I think yeah, we had like confusion whether he's going to start or not. We'll see tomorrow, but at least he traveled, right? Salah definitely, no doubt about it at all. Haaland, uh, yeah, Salah and Haaland are essential, and we picked here Morris because of the double game week, as we mentioned, right? But I mean, you could do a little bit more, like like shuffle around, right? That say if you don't like Morris, if you want to get in Alvarez from now, then you can get Alvarez, right? But in that case, you may have to. I mean, it depends on your team value as well. But if you get Alvarez, you may have to compromise somewhere. Either it's Trippier or is Saka, or like 8 million ish, mid. So you have to kind of judge that. But some other option would be like Trippier to either Barn or Shar, and then Gordon could be Diaby or JWP. Like West Ham's fixture look pretty good, and their next fixture is versus Sheffield United, which is really very like leaky team, and also they are very bad on set pieces, right? And JW could be a monster, against them. So I think it's a good shout. But anyways, Diaby, if you want to get like Villa boys, definitely Diaby, and Regulon can be Udogi as well, because I mean I think Udogi is or Poro, right? Any Sparts defense. So yeah, I think overall structure is gonna be something like that, 3-5-2 in this setup. Just here and there, 2 to 3 players you have to probably kind of shuffle, and um, that's what I thought. And I don't know what you think, but I think that's gonna be kind of a
Yeah, it's
popular.
pretty template and pretty kind of it kind of the picks they pick themselves, right? So all the players pretty much pick themselves. As you said, the fifth midfielder spot is probably one where you can probably play around it with a little bit Gordon, or if you have fun, go for a GWP or DRB for a short-term punt, or even for a longer term. Trippier is someone probably worth talking about. I mean, of course, he did score an 18-pointer last game week, but is he expendable for another cheaper Newcastle defender, maybe for value again, right? If you can use that fund better elsewhere, for me, I think he's pretty essential. I wouldn't want to sacrifice Trippier, but if someone thinks that like someone like a Shar or even a Barn can potentially at least cover Trippier somewhat, and then you use that extra fund elsewhere. He is expensive, right? He's 6.5 million, 1.5 million more expensive than any other Newcastle defender. So I think he went up to 6.6 today. But yeah, if you think that you can use the fund elsewhere, absolutely, that could make sense potentially in the longer term. That gives you more flexibility in your team as well, right? So you at least have better fund rotation in the midfield area, or even upgrade a Morris later once he's done, and so on, right? So that's basically it. But I think elsewhere, you at least have to target the double game week for sure, because you are wildcarding in game week 7. So why not have your bench players in place? So once they're done with their double game week, you can bring them in your team. That's basically the idea, core idea for game week 7 wildcard, right? So that's that. Game week 8. Sorry, and 9. So you have a kind of a similar-ish team, right? So of course, uh, Spurs still remains, right? So all the Spurs players still remains a defender and potentially two midfielders. You still have Salah, you still have Haaland, you still have Saka. Now that you are done with the double game weekers, of course, you are not targeting them anymore. So instead of Morris, you can start with an Alvarez or whoever else kind of shows up, right? Darwin potentially could be an option, right? We spoke about it, maybe not today as much, but we spoke about it separately. Darwin could be a fine option for from Liverpool. He looks like he's the first choice attacker, right? So he could be a nice option in there as well instead of Alvarez. And then again, you kind of play around with the funds. As you see on these draft, you don't have Trippier, right? Because you have to have the funds for Alvarez up front, for example, right? So that's basically where the fund goes. And I think again, it kind of depends on your risk appetite. If you think that Trippier is an essential, you sacrifice elsewhere, right? Either in the midfield, if you downgrade a Madison, or you downgrade an Alvarez and so on, right? So that's where you basically sacrifice. So that's where we are. Anything to add on the game week 8 and 9 wildcard?
No, I think, I mean, yeah, 7, 8, 9, as you said, it's very similar except the double game week players, right? And otherwise, I think it's very similar.
Hmm. Okay. All right, so let's move on to game week 10. This is slightly different. Again, the core players are still very similar, but as we said, Tottenham's fixtures are not as great post game week 10, right? Starting game week 10 and so on. So you can afford to maybe offload Son potentially, right? Just have Madison, he covers Spurs well. Salah's fixtures are still very good. Liverpool's fixtures are good for the longer run. Haaland is a question, right? I mean, there is at least one school of thought who thinks that you can go without Haaland, especially given how good Liverpool's and Aston Villa's fixtures are for at least 5, 6 game weeks, right? I wouldn't personally. I just don't have the heart to go without Haaland because even if you take the harder games out, there are few of the easier games in there as well, right? I think there's a Bournemouth game, there's a Brighton home game, right? In and around game week 10, 12 time frame. I wouldn't have the heart to go without Haaland. If someone does, if you think that that value can be again used elsewhere to make your team overall better, I think it's a valid option. But again, whether you have that risk or not, right? And again, I think I was when I was talking to you guys earlier this week as well. Uh, I don't think models yet quite can predict Haaland's ceiling properly, right? It's just difficult, right, to how high his ceiling can be, right? Especially in those games, like in the Bournemouth game or in the Brighton game. So if you consider that, then it's really, really hard to go without Haaland, even given that other fixtures around are kind of tough or toughish. So yeah, I mean, elsewhere, I think, of course, the big change from a game week 8 or 9 wildcard is that you get in the Brighton boys, because again, their fixtures are also similarly very, very good game week 10 onwards. So that those are basically the additional changes from everything else that we have seen before. So yeah, I think the only major difference is Brighton here. Potentially Brighton and Aston Villa, you kind of double up on those teams. Salah still is there, all the other popular assets are still there. Arsenal's fixtures are also pretty good game week 10 onwards, right? I think 10 is Sheffield, right? Yeah, 10 is Sheffield home, and after that also their fixtures are pretty good. So you would probably want at least one Arsenal asset, maybe even a defender potentially there. You may not need like Newcastle double defense, for example, from game week 10 onwards, right? You may want to add an Arsenal defender instead. But anyways, we are far from that. But that's basically again the core information is that from game week 7 to game week 10, the core players still remain very, very same, very, very similar. It's just kind of playing around with the fixtures, identifying who the optimum options are for that particular game week, and that basically your wildcard. At least right now, it kind of seems pretty obvious, right? Who the wildcard picks should be in the next few game weeks. Anything else to add for game week 10 specifically?
No, I mean, I just wanted to reiterate that Haaland discussion, right? That you just said at the very beginning that I mean, people are thinking whether, I mean, he's not captainable, and like, whether we should drop him or not. So I actually had a tweet, right? If you remember, it was kind of like, kind of, I would say, not very serious, kind of fun type tweet that, okay, from game week 9, game week 10 to 17, all captain Haaland. I mean, definitely it was a joke, but the one thing I just wanted to convey is that, like, it's not like that you just drop him because he's not captainable. I mean, you might captain Salah if you want, but again, in some games, right, as you said, like Bournemouth game, if you don't captain him, it might backfire very much, right? So I would
Mm-hmm.
say it's not like captain is a thing, but again, as we mentioned before, that Haaland and Salah, I think both of them are essential, right? You can switch captaincy, but I mean, we say it's a difficult game, but we saw what they did against Man United in last season, right? 6-3,
Right.
right? And Man United still didn't look good so far, right? So it's not functional team yet. Then Bournemouth, then Chelsea, still not up to the mark. Liverpool at the home. Liverpool did score a lot of goals, but they conceded a lot of goals too, right? So it's not really bad matchup. Spurs at home, the same thing. Spurs look good offensively, but like defensively they conceded, right? Then Villa, Luton, Crystal Palace. I mean, and then 18 they are blanking. So are those really bad fixtures? I mean, I don't think so, right?
Yep.
So I think, I mean, at least as you said, I also don't have heart to get rid of him. So in my wildcard 10 draft, yeah, things might change. Lot of injuries, lot of information might be there, but I'm also set on like Haaland and Salah in game week 10. One question Omar asked: can efforts Son in this draft? I think if you have like Haaland, Salah, Saka, and Alvarez, and if you'd like to also have, I mean, like Madis, I don't think Son can be afforded here. You have to do some sort of sacrifice elsewhere. Either it's Saka or it might be Alvarez downgrading, right? Um,
Yeah. I think
or
looking at this, it looks like there is probably a little bit of money. I don't know how exactly how much is in the bank, but probably a little bit, but probably too far to go to Sun for sure.
yeah, might be like, I mean, if you, it's hard, I think, Sun
Mhm.
might be very difficult. And as we discussed before as well, I think, Omar, I don't know whether you like watched us before, that you might not need two sparse assets actually
Packers. Yeah.
after game week 10. One should be enough, I guess. So, but yeah, that's the thing. So.
Okay. All right. So that was our wildcard discussion. Again, if you have any additional questions, please let us know. You can shoot us a message or DM on Twitter as well at FPL under the radar. Let's quickly talk about our team selection for this game week. Pretty straightforward. I think I'll just read out my team. Um, Goalkeeper, I'm a little confused. I'm playing Turner right now against Brentford. Johnston has an away game against Man United, so I think I'm preferring Turner just slightly little over Johnston. Palace are a better defense, but I think Forest probably have a better chance of a clean sheet and potentially more saves as well in that game. So that's why I'm playing Turner. In defense, I have Diaz, Cabore, my only double game weaker, and Trippier. And my midfield is Madison, Rashford, Mbeumo, Bruno Fernandes, and Saka. And up front, I have Alvarez and Haaland. So last week, of course, I made Chilwell and Jackson to Trippier and Alvarez. Alvarez didn't quite work out. So that's one information that I'm still waiting on tomorrow. See what whether Alvarez starts or not. I probably still won't sell him. I just don't want to get Morris yet. I might just bench him and play Stupinian. But then the other key piece of information is whether Saka starts, right? I think we might get some information before the deadline. If we know for sure that Saka is not starting, I think I am tempted to take the hit for Saka and Diaz to Son and Botman. That does two things. One is that, of course, I get Son ahead of time in this game week. And also, my team gets pretty close to a wildcard 7 team with double Newcastle defense, with double Spurs midfielder, and so on. So it will be easier for me to navigate game week 8 and onwards. So not too far off from what the wildcarders will be getting in Game Week 7 and Game Week 8. So that will be basically the plan. But if I hear that Alvarez is starting, Saka is starting, I'll leaning towards rolling the transfer this game week. Let's talk about your team, and then we can maybe combinedly talk about our teams since we have similar problems at least.
Right. I think I have Pickford. I'm hoping at least he gets clean sheet in this game. So,
Yep.
but yeah, and then Kabore double game week, Diaz, Trippier. I think we have the very just Starling and Madison are the difference, right? Otherwise, yeah, and Pickford and Johnston, right? And otherwise, it's the same team. So yeah, I'm also benching Estupinian and hoping or expecting some news in the morning about Saka and also like City Boys, right? They are
Mhm.
playing 10 o'clock in our time, so usually we get some news, right? So we'll see. If I don't get any news, I will just roll, right? But if there is any news that either Saka is not starting or so, I have exact money. I'm very fortunate today. Neither Saka dropped nor like Son like increased. So I have exact money still to do Saka to Son in one move if I like get a news that Saka will be benched or like he's
Mhm.
not starting. Otherwise, the plan is to roll. Now, if I get any news about Alvarez, that I'm not sure about. I mean, I think Estupinian is still a good, uh, you know, player to come from the bench, and Alvarez might have cameo. Who knows? But it's just, yeah. In that case, I might do Alvarez to Morris. Maybe I don't know. I mean, that moment I will actually I have to think about it. I might just
Mhm.
take a double gimmick player and will think to get rid of him during my wildcard. So that's kind of one thought I have. What's your thought? Did you have any thought about it? Like if you hear that Alvarez is not starting,
No, I
what are
was
you gonna
just
do?
talking about it, right? I'm not quite intent on taking Morris anyways. I think I would just play Stupinian over Alvarez.
Hmm.
If we absolutely know that he's not starting, I think there is a slim chance that he doesn't start anyways. I mean, again, City's squad is pretty depleted. They don't have a lot of players. He did play about 70-ish minute in the Carabao Cup, right? So that's a concern. And then of course they have the UCL game, but he was also subbed off early because of Rodri's red card in the previous game, right? So I think, and he is pretty fit. Pep has mentioned that multiple times. I don't see a whole lot of reasons why he could be benched. He could be subbed off early, maybe. That's an option. That's a possibility. But yeah, I mean, if he doesn't start, I would probably just play S2. If both Alvarez and Saka doesn't start, then it could be a real little problematic. But I think then again similar. I think I would just bench Alvarez, just move out Saka so that I have Son and Botman in place so that I can play them and S2 in the first 11 as well. So, but yeah, I don't think I'm very intent on getting Morris either way. So yeah, that's.
So that's one thing I would like to discuss. So if Alvarez doesn't start and then he's
Mhm,
playing against Arsenal in the next game week, right?
mhm.
And then in game week 9 or 10, you're probably wildcarding. So is there any reason to keep Alvarez?
It's
Um,
just the not doesn't look like the right use of the transfer, right? If I had two FTs, for example, then yes. But again, my targets for game week 7 or 8 are going to be the Spurs boys, right? I need Son in. I
right. Yeah.
potentially need Aston Villa defender in, or I need a Spurs defender in. So already looking at taking a hit here and there, right? And again, I don't mind the City game versus Arsenal that much. I think there will be goals in that game as well. um, it's not the best fixture, not the optimal fixture, but for his price, for he's still great value. So yeah, I'm not too worried about that. I mean, even post game week 8, I think I'm fine holding Alvarez in general. Not ideal, of course, but again, I think there are priority transfers elsewhere that I uh, don't want to use that transfer on, right? Is I mean, Estupinian, as you said, he could get an attacking return easily, right? And then you are looking at Morris to have to score like a 12, 13 pointer to bridge your gap with the heat and so on, right? Extra additional heat. I'm saying heat because down the road that will be an additional hit, right? May
Right.
not be this game week, but it will be an hit down the road. So yeah, I'm really not very intent on Morris either way. I think I would rather make sure that I have the right players in place for game week 8 and onwards. That's going to be the game plan.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, definitely Alvarez, the price that he has, right? It has been a blessing for the community, right, or for the FPL managers. I mean, we didn't get his haul. I mean, those who got him early definitely they're in a very good shape. But yeah, I think he's still at this current price as well. So, yep.
Yep. Okay. ZD's team, last but not the least. So he has Turner, Botman, Saliba. He did do a early transfer this week, Chilwell to Trippier. So his only free transfer is already used. But team looks good elsewhere. In midfield, he has Mbeumo, Rashford, Foden, Saka, and Madison, Alvarez, and Haaland. Again, he has similar thoughts. If Saka doesn't start, if we hear that news, he has exact money to do Saka to Son like you, Wrangler. So he will potentially be tempted to do that even for a hit. So he only had one transfer that's used up, so he will have to take the hit for Saka to Son. But he will likely do that if Saka doesn't start. If
Mm.
we for sure know that Saka is not starting. But yeah, that's where he is right now as well.
There is a question in the chat, interesting one. Would you like to answer? Like, who do you bench from these three? Saka, Sterling, Mbumo. All of them have good fixture.
Yeah, it's a tough choice. I would probably say, well, actually, it's difficult. Again, I mean, if Saka gets benched, that makes it easy
Makes it
for you. But
easier. Yeah.
otherwise, maybe Mbeumo. Again, not an easy decision, but an away game for Brentford. Forest hasn't been that bad defensively this season. So yeah, out of those three, maybe Mbeumo. I don't like it, but yeah, if you have to bench one, probably Mbeumo. I actually really like Sterling's matchup. I told you that before as well, right? For
Mhm.
especially for this game week against Fulham, given that he'll play potentially closer to the goal as well, right? I've been shouting about that since like game week two, like play Sterling closer to the goal. He is that kind of player who is, if he's around the goal, he'll score. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good matchup. So you have to take that chance, I think, with Sterling over Mbeumo.
Mhm. Yeah, another point, just someone mentioned that Zuma is a good under the radar punt. Yeah, I mean, in this
Yeah,
game week especially,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I'm still
given,
tempted, right? I mean, Zuma generally always scores goals for me. Every season,
yeah,
I get a goal from Zuma. So if I do have to make that Diaz to like a downgraded defender, at the back of my mind, although I said Botman in my slide, but I'm kind of tempted to go there. The only problem is that then in game week 8, you don't have a good playable defender, right? That's the problem. That's
right,
why
yeah.
Botman or someone like that is better choice over the longer term and over the next few game weeks. But yeah, Zuma is one of those guys that always kind of gives me that feeling, right? Like he could easily get a headed goal. I think he already has a goal this season, and
Yeah, and
Sheffield as
Sheffield
well.
United, yeah, like set piece, they are very
Great
vulnerable,
goal.
right? So we just talked
Yep.
about it. So yeah,
Could be a good shout, definitely.
good shout.
Especially people who are wildcarding in game week 8. Definitely a very good 1 week punt. Absolutely.
Do you
Do
think
you
Dan
think
Burn will
Dan?
play? I think so, right?
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
he was just ill. He
yeah,
wasn't injured or anything. It's just so he should play. Yep. All right. Okay. That's it from us for today. Again, good luck everyone for your game week 7 transfers. Hopefully it goes good for everyone. Wrangler, good luck to you as well.
you too.
We'll talk more hopefully tomorrow before deadline. I'm pretty sure we'll all be looking forward to the team news from Man City, from Arsenal, and so on. But yeah, hopefully it all goes well for us. Thank you, Wrangler. Thank you everyone else for
Yeah,
joining us. We'll meet you all soon.
bye.
All right. Bye bye.